Welcome to the Drive History Podcast, your 14th stop for all things automotive on the internet. This week, from June 18th to June 24th, we take you along for an unforgettable Audi S5 Sportback experience in Montauk, packed with car spotting highlights and lowlights. We'll dive into a wild study suggesting loud exhaust levers might be a bit psychotic, and reminisce about the legendary Nurburgring's racing history. Plus, we'll chat about Rivian teaming up with Tesla, celebrate Alfa Romeo's birthday, and much more. Buckle up, my friends. This is one you don't want to miss.
It's time to cruise the highways and byways of the auto industry's past, present, and future. Join us in exploring the vehicles, people, events, and places that have shaped the way we move. This is the Drive History Podcast.
Welcome to another episode of the Drive History Podcast. I'm still Brian Corey, and that's still Jordan Stead.
This is true. Welcome back, everybody. I am also welcoming myself back because I just got back from a week and a half in New England with my wife and my mom on a 6-state road trip. And
It's a good combo of travel partners.
Yeah, for sure. And, love them both. But what we're going to talk about today, because this is a car podcast, is I met my Audi hero, and I'm not disappointed.
The third woman of your life.
That's right. Still not sponsored by Turo, but I did rent a Audi SQ5 SUV from Turo for this trip. And I thought it'd be perfect. Hey, there's enough room for luggage, all this stuff. It'll be fast. I get some stuff. My wife, my mom get some stuff. It's going to be great. It's going to be a perfect road trip car. Like 3 days before the trip happens, I just happen to send the guy a note. Hey, is it still available? Because, one would think.
Smart to follow up.
And it wasn't because it's in the shop. And so he goes, but I do have an S5 Sportback 2018 available. And I started thinking to myself, wow. Okay. One, that's not at all like an SQ5. It's not an SUV. It is a 4-door sedan, and probably is much smaller than an SQ5. And turns out that was the only option that he had left to give us in terms of a vehicle for the entire road trip. And we were checking bags and a bunch of other stuff. So I was kind of freaking out like, oh, we're going to have this road trip where we're all jammed in there with a bunch of tight luggage in this small, fast, but probably pretty fun car. And
but
we get
small
there.
What's that? But small is the
I was worried about
potential
the size.
Problem here.
Right. Basically, 9 days of driving later, I have some highlights and some lowlights to bring to the table.
Let's hear it.
First thing, still love Audis, even though this was my first Audi experience. So I wasn't disappointed by my first real Audi experience.
That's a good sign.
That's a big highlight for me.
Yeah.
You don't want to meet your heroes a lot, and I did, and I feel good about it. I would say, for me,
I didn't know you met Dale Earnhardt.
What's that?
I didn't know you met Dale Earnhardt.
I would say that this car, for me, was like probably as perfect of a blend of luxury and speed and power that I've driven to date. Like just like a nice everyday daily situation car that you could still have fun in, but you can also rip a 7-hour road trip in, which we did like 3 days in a row, 7 hours of driving. Yeah, it was crazy.
That's a lot.
It was a lot. It's like almost 400 horsepower, which is considerably more than any car I've personally owned. I've driven faster cars, but this is the longest period of time that I've driven a car with that power level consistently, like just getting used to it.
Yeah.
Couple things on that. 400 horsepower is not slow, just in case anyone was wondering. It's also not the fastest thing in the world, but I do believe that a car of that power level is actually good to have in a number of scenarios. Getting in and out of weird traffic scenarios and passing on the freeway if you need to, it's a nice amount of power. Like you're out of there quick.
It gives you that oomph.
Oh yeah, you're going. Although I do think my hot take is I think 300 horsepower for a like moderately weighted vehicle is kind of the sweet spot. This felt like fun overpowered, but not totally necessary power. Like I could see you getting by with 100 less horsepower and feeling still kind of zippy, but not, not feeling not feeling bad about it. Let's put it that way.
It's a bigger sedan, right? Or it's a bigger car.
It
So
is.
it has a little bit of weight behind it.
It does. It's not like a light car, but I mean, compared to like an electric vehicle that's
Right.
5,000 pounds, right? Some of my favorite things about it was the steering wheel and the cockpit and like the gauges of this car is perfect. Everything's exactly where it should be. The steering wheel is super badass looking, feels great. All the information that you possibly could want on the gauges in like a simple but interesting way is there.
Was this pre-digital gauge cluster?
This is a digital gauge.
It is a digital
Yeah, and I
gauge,
think it was
okay.
actually I think it was maybe the first gen with the digital gauges, at least in this particular car.
Okay.
I really enjoyed it.
Yeah?
Loved it. Do I like analog gauges more just from like a general
Enthusiast
vibe?
standpoint.
Yeah, kind of. Yes.
Yeah.
But it's, it's crisp, it's clear, it's fast, looks great.
Yeah.
The real insanity though of this car is the storage space. So they make the S5 in a sedan, 4-door, which is a regular trunk, and they have the Sportback, which is what we had for this trip, which is more of like the whole back window, glass of the rear window lifts up like a whole lift gate type.
It's like a
thing.
hatchback.
It's like a hatchback, but in the same exact body shape, pretty much, as the sedan.
Yeah.
And we fit 3 carry-on bags, 3 gigantic check bags, and 2 backpacks in the trunk of this vehicle.
And 3 dead bodies.
Yes. I was shocked. I have photos. We'll put them on the, on the
luggage.
channels. I was shocked by how much this fit in the car. I couldn't believe it. I thought we were screwed before this trip began. Like, there's no way we're going to be sitting there with carry-on luggage on our
Right.
on our legs during the drive. No, it was incredible. Could not believe it. The low lights. Within 15 minutes of picking up this vehicle, day one, guess what I was doing? Going to O'Reilly's, putting some oil in it.
No way.
Yeah, immediately got the oil light.
Did you hit up the owner and
Yeah.
be like, excuse me, sir?
Yeah. And so he was like, oh yeah, that's, it's normal. I usually just put some in there and call it good. I'm like, okay, cool.
How many miles were on this thing?
60,000.
And you're putting oil in it?
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah.
Ugh.
But anyway, that was funny. I got a little bit of the Audi ownership out of the way right on day one.
Fun.
Yeah. Pull over, put the emergency oil in there. It was fine. And I think the owner was impressed that I even knew how to put oil into a car that I didn't own. Anyway, then the very nice massaging heated seat on the passenger side just stopped working on
No.
the trip. The key fob ran out of battery. And then I hated the auto start stop feature, which you have to manually
yeah.
turn off every time you start the
I
car.
hear that from a lot of people with that option on their vehicle. They're like, nope.
Yeah.
How do I deprogram this?
Yeah, you can do it manually every time. I know that when you tune cars, you can often tune those features out entirely as well and void your warranty. But at the same time, it's just dumb. I don't like the feature.
It sounds like a great trip overall.
Yeah. It's a beautiful car. I loved it. It was fast. It was fun. It was luxurious. It was actually a perfect vehicle for a 9-day road trip.
Well, big question in terms of ownership. Could you fit a dog in the back?
So that's the thing. It's too raked in the back. You could fit like a Chihuahua back there, but then they'd be in this like almost airtight section of a trunk. Like
Right.
the seats still go back and meet the back of the car.
So it is a trunk.
It's a trunk. It's
Yeah.
just a gigantic, deep and wide trunk.
Got it.
Yeah. It's sweet though, man. If I didn't have a dog, this might be it. This might be like the perfect daily.
Just let your dog ride shotgun.
I know. I should just tow him behind in like a little baby carrier. Anyway, this podcast would be so much more interesting if I didn't have a dog. And if you didn't have a dog, we'd be like driving the dumbest shit around.
I still do.
Fair enough. And then on the tail end of my trip, I was in Montauk for a wedding, which if you don't know, Montauk is a very rich area.
I'm pretty sure everybody has watched Stranger Things.
All right, fair. And let me just tell you, I hope you like Defenders, X5s, 911s, vintage Porsches, and Cayennes, because that's pretty much the haven of that entire world. That's like all it is. Everyone's driving a gazillion-dollar brand new luxury vehicle.
What is it? Is it just old money? What do people do out there?
I mean, I think you just have a lot of like rich summer home New Yorker folks going there. Celebrities fly up there in the helicopters, hang out in their house. Driving there is horrible. It's totally out of the way. It's hours and hours from New York on a 1-lane, 2-lane road. It's awful. I did see a couple cool things though. I did see an acid green Porsche GT3 RS, which is cool. And personally, if you're going to buy a car like that, I think it should be in the loudest and most obnoxious color ever.
Totally.
So this person obviously won that battle. And then I saw the new BMW XM, which is sort of their like they think it is, but this sort of class-leading, most powerful, biggest SUV M version of that, and it is not cool, which I think most people also already know.
We're in agreement on that.
I think so. And the one last thing here is, as I was leaving the Montauk Yacht Club, which is the hotel where I was staying,
Sure it is.
I missed BMW was having a driving experience workshop at the Montauk Hotel for the new 7 Series sedans.
Dang.
And anyone could have done it, but I had to leave. I didn't get a chance to go and drive one. But
that would have been fun.
totally. Yeah.
Next time you're at the yacht club,
Yeah.
I'm sure you'll find something.
Yeah, I'm in like Flynn, dude. I'm going to be there all the time.
That's sick.
Yeah, it was a good trip, man. Honestly, my wife and my mom are really tired of hearing about this, but I actually think that the Audi was the reason why the trip went so well. Because if we were in some shitbox like rental Hertz whatever Kia base model car or whatever,
Sure.
it would have been horrible just for a number of reasons. And
Just butzing around.
yeah, so loved it. It was fun. I officially am still interested in Audis. So yeah.
Well, now you have some experience to walk into a dealership with and be like, well, this one time,
Yeah.
am I going to have to put oil in this thing after 30,000 miles?
It's true. Yeah. What about you? What do you got going on? Anything exciting?
Well, I had dinner at some new friends' houses. They're a little bit older, and they run a film festival here in town. Found out that I'm into car stuff, and they're like, "Oh, we got a car. Maybe you'd be interested in."
Cool. Me too.
It's like, so they take me out to the garage, and they're like, "Okay, stand right here. Like, we'll pop the garage."
Oh.
Door starts going up. Catch the taillights. BMW action, and then it
Not a
hits me.
quadricycle.
Unfortunately, I probably would have been more into it. But they had a BMW M5 E39. I forget the year.
Sure.
The gentleman who owned it said he was able to acquire the very last red one that was imported to the United States, which is pretty cool.
Okay.
Like 90% of them were black or silver, I believe.
Yep. The beginning of the boring car color phase.
Right. And it was a 6-speed, and it only had 50,000 miles on it.
Damn. Manual.
Yeah.
M5.
Manual M5, 50,000 miles,
Red.
red,
Wow.
rare in that color.
Damn.
And it hasn't been tabbed since 2021.
Oh, you basically saw a barn find.
For real.
Can we call it a barn find? I think we can call it a barn find for now.
This garage was very barnish.
Nice.
So
that
sure.
adds to the Barney effect.
Yeah. And then they take me to their other garage, and they had another car that is more barn findy. It was a 1954 Plymouth station wagon. It was actually really sick, and it was from a movie. I forget. But that one's coming up for sale, and it's pretty sick.
Wow. This is like a very this day in automotive history
Totally.
thing
So
to
that's-
have done.
Yeah, it was just like, people find out your interest, and they're like, well, we got this stuff. And anyway, I talked cars with the guy for a long time, and said that was his midlife crisis buy in 2003-ish. So
Wow. Well, it's going to pay you back, sir.
yeah,
Wow.
I think he's done all right on it.
Oh, man, I want it.
He's considering selling.
Oof. Love it. Exciting. Love it. Well, today in the news, this is my favorite piece of news I've heard in a while.
Well, I just couldn't believe they did a study about you.
That's true. Yeah. It's weird. Without my consent as well. Someone's going to get sued. Anyway, a study says that people who like loud exhausts are psychotic. A study by Western University in Ontario found that individuals who prefer loud car exhausts tend to score higher on psychopathy and sadism, enjoying the imposition of noise on others rather than seeking attention. The research involving 529 undergraduate students suggests that truck and motorcycle owners might exhibit even stronger psychopathic traits. Let's break this down. How do you feel about this?
I really don't know what to say about this. I think that you have to ask actual car people about this,
Yeah.
as opposed to just some business majors.
That's true.
I think most business majors are insane anyway.
And smart.
Yeah,
Smarter than us.
smarter than us. But it is interesting to just point a finger and say you're crazy for liking loud cars. That's pretty wild. Although I kind of understand it, because most people who drive, especially the truck
Yes.
thing, like the truck people, I understand.
And motorcycles. I feel like motorcycles are always making way too much fucking noise for what they're doing.
Yeah, but I think it's because it's just all uncontained.
Yeah.
Like motorcycles are just loud by nature.
That's true. Yeah.
Whereas
I hear you on trucks though, for sure. Like I'm like, okay, why is every truck straight piped?
Why?
Literally every one.
So I don't know. What do you think about it?
Well, so to not incriminate myself, here's the way that I'm gonna save face a little bit. I don't doubt that there are more people out there that want a loud car to annoy other people than the alternative. I have always enjoyed louder cars if I'm going to drive them because of the effect it has on me. I never want to drive a loud car to annoy other people or get more attention.
Totally.
Which I think is a fundamental difference here, right? It's
Totally.
like the kid who's sitting on his rev limiter in the Honda Civic at 3 a.m. outside your house is there to like, he chose violence today. Like that was the goal.
True.
Whereas if I'm going out on a spirited drive, I want to hear the vehicle that I'm shifting through gears with and having that experience just from a sonic experience.
I agree 100%. I mean, the sound 100% influences the driving experience.
Right. So I'm not psychopathic. I'm free from this.
I don't know. To be determined.
Oh man. Okay, I feel like I'm talking a lot on this episode, and we're coming in hot here today, but I like it. I've got a little inquiry for you.
Let's hear it.
Unrelated to anything. This occurred to me on my trip out east. I was sitting in line waiting for...
Audi East.
Hey, there it is.
That was a bad joke.
It was bad. Super bad. I was sitting in a line waiting to get on a ferry in New England. And I turned to my wife and I asked this question out of nowhere.
By ferry, do you mean yacht?
I wish. No, just a regular poor person ferry.
Ah.
But I got kind of into my head about this, and it's similar to what we've talked about on past episodes where we've wondered where are the sub $20,000 cars, right? I took it a step further and I asked the question, and maybe it's the dumbest question ever, but it's interesting to think about. Why is it that when a car costs less in a range, let's say, like for instance, Audi, they have the A series, the S series, and the RS series, right? Why is it that the cars on the lowest end of the range look the worst objectively? And I ask this because really making a car look better simply from an exterior design should not probably cost more than making it look cool, right? It's just like a design choice, the sculpting of the body. Sculpting a body one way is not like it's some crazy different expense than it would be to sculpt it a different way. Obviously, I'm not talking in extremes here. I just mean the difference between, like, let's say an RS vehicle and an A series vehicle from Audi, or let's say an entry-level BMW, like a 328i BMW versus an M3, right? Same lineage of car, right? But one looks so much better in these like sometimes subtle and sometimes slightly more dramatic ways. Why is it that no one has made a really beautiful, very expensive looking car externally, but the rest of the car is cheap as shit? So that maybe the inside sucks. Maybe it's underpowered. Maybe the engine's terrible. But at the end of the day, imagine if you could buy a $15,000 car that looked like an $85,000 sports car.
Sure.
On the outside. Why is that not a thing? Why do we make cheaper cars look worse when you could probably sell a lot more of them if they looked better, still for the same price?
That's interesting. I think what it is that if a car looks cool and is cheap, they're not going to sell any of the expensive, cool-looking cars.
You think, though?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Primarily from like a commuter standpoint. Like they're like, well, I'll just buy the cheapest one no matter what it looks like. I do think you're right that like it's not going to cost more to make a car look cool.
Right.
The body stamping or the panels are just what they are.
Right.
It's all the same amount of material probably.
Right.
But I do think that it's an element of prestige to have a car look nice. And so even if it's just changing the wheels or we talk about the trim levels all the time.
Right.
Like having the bigger wheels and the blacked out window or tinted windows and this, that, and the other thing just makes it feel like a more exclusive product. And it's just a way to get people to buy up the ladder.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. What I will say is I don't think that any of the existing car companies are going to make a cool looking cheap car. But I think at this time in the automotive industry, we're seeing, Rivian and all these other like startups, they might be more interested in producing a vehicle that is of that nature.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yeah.
But then you take it, or you look at like the Chevy Corvette, for example. Technically it has a starting price of 70 grand, but that's a car that looks like $150,000 or something. But that's an extreme example.
Yeah. Well, here's a follow-up question for you on your thing about if the cheap car looked the best, would people still buy expensive cars? I would like to believe that if there were two people, one person has 15 grand in their pocket and one has 100 grand in their pocket, and they're both faced with the opportunity to buy a vehicle, there is a beautiful $15,000 car. I don't believe that the person with $100,000 would buy that $15,000 car because they have the money in their pocket and they're willing to spend more on a different car, even if it didn't look as good. I think that they would be more excited to spend that money on a more quote unquote expensive car and the way it made them feel than them saying, yeah, I bought the cheap but beautiful $15,000 car.
That's fair. I mean, performance says a lot about what you buy, right?
And maybe that's what it is. Maybe it looks similar, but the performance is crazy high on the more expensive vehicle. Like, do you think that would sway people just as much to buy the more expensive vehicle, or do you think the aesthetics have to go with it as you go up the ladder?
I mean, I think you can look at something like the Chevy Camaro, for example. You buy an LT1, like the LT1 is the 6-cylinder automatic base model of it, right? And it's 30 grand or whatever it is. People who buy that, just they're buying it because it to them it still looks cool, maybe, but they're not buying it because it's a performance car. People who buy the LT3 or whatever the higher trim level is, they're buying it because they want an actual performance vehicle, and they're spending the money on the horsepower, on the suspension, on the brakes. So you're right. I think people will spend the money to get a car that performs well. I think that design is almost like second in terms of importance when it comes to performance versus looks. Yeah,
and you make a good point about Camaros, because to me, a fairly non-Camaro-y person, I look at a base model Camaro all the way up to like, not the 1LE or whatever, like the crazy track one, but like an SS, right? Which is like a V8, like, that's a legitimate performance car, legitimate performance bargain car as well. There's a lot of difference between an entry level and an SS, but they look exactly the same to me. So I'm like, to me, I'm like, oh, okay, what am I paying for here? Is it just a performance? Because I don't know. I would not personally want to spend more money on a car that looked the same as a cheaper car, but just had more performance personally.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, that's why they have like the trims that are,
But like Audi is a great example too. Like, think about an A4 or like, an A4 and then an S4 and then an RS4. Like the car from a distance looks almost exactly the same.
Yeah.
Once you get up to the RS level, sure, there's some fun trim things there, but nothing totally out of the norm crazy, right? Like, it looks different. You can tell it's a more performance-oriented car, but it's almost all in the performance or like the luxury features inside the car. But even still, the A series of that car is still very luxurious. Like you'll have stuff in there that you would buy in the RS model that's almost $100,000 something more. But you could just buy the A4.
Well, the last thing I'll say about it, to your point, is having an entry-level vehicle gets people to come to your brand.
Yeah.
First-time car buyers, first-time luxury car buyers. It sells them on the Audi brand, for example.
Yeah.
And then they buy the S-Class, or then they buy the next level up.
And I think it works.
It does. I mean, they've been doing that with like General Motors, buy a Chevy and then you buy a Buick and then you buy a Cadillac.
Yeah. Yeah. Even look at this isn't exactly the same example, but think about all the different F-150 trims.
Oh my God.
But the truck generally looks exactly the same.
Right.
At least to my eye. But you
I want the King Ranch Harley Davidson.
Yeah, but you could literally be paying what, $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 more for a truck that looks exactly the same, but just has some different interior features or maybe some more power or whatever else. I don't know.
No, you're right.
I just thought it was curious because I imagine that if you were a new car company or if you had the capital or even if you were an old car company but you had the money and maybe your sales were lagging or whatever, coming out with an incredibly beautiful but very cheap vehicle would be an interesting business play.
I mean, I'd probably buy it.
Totally.
Is that what the Miata is?
No, because it's $35,000.
Sure.
Beautiful, though.
You better write a letter to somebody.
I know. Anyway, curious to hear people's thoughts on that as well. Like if you're listening and you're curious about that, or you can think of a good example of that, please drop us a line. I'd love to hear people's thoughts.
Bam.
Yeah.
What do you think? Should we get into a little bit of history?
Let's do it. Hit me.
So this week we are covering June 18th through June 24th, and we're starting off June 18th, 1927. After 2 years of construction, the Nurburgring Circuit in Nuremberg, Germany holds its first races. The very first event featured motorcycles with sidecars, and Tom Ullman won the race riding a 350cc Velocette, which is an English motorcycle of some sort, I believe.
Cool.
The first automobile races took place the very next day, and Rudolph Caracciola?
Sure.
Can you?
Caracciola. I don't know.
Yeah, you got the Italian down. Took the checkered flag in the over 5,000cc class, driving a supercharged Mercedes-Benz K.
Yes.
So as you know, this track is legendary.
Yeah.
When it first opened, it consisted of 174 bends, made up of a 14.2 mile north loop and a 4.8 mile south loop. And today, it's a 150,000 person venue, which is huge, right? That has more than a dozen configurations for events that include Formula One, rally racing, endurance racing, motorcycle racing, and all that. And it's currently home to the Nürburgring 24 Hours, which I didn't actually know that they did a 24-hour race there. So
I didn't either, but I mean, it's the track to judge on all of the tracks.
Right. So you're right, it is. A lot of automakers use it as the standard of performance, the lap times of the current North Loop, which is 12.9 miles. Yeah. So the current best lap time for a production or street legal vehicle was set on October 28th, 2022 in a Mercedes-Benz AMG 1.
Wow.
And that's a lap time of 6 minutes and 30 seconds.
Oh my God.
30.705 seconds.
That's
13 miles. Yeah.
That's so fast.
So fast. But it gets faster. Non-road going vehicle, the record is 5 minutes, 19.546 seconds in a Porsche 919 Hybrid Evo, which was set in 2018.
I would kill someone to drive it, by the way. Although I'd be very scared. It would be an incredible experience.
They do track days
I know.
there.
Yeah.
And this was a funny little fact that I found. When it first opened, it was actually opened as a one-way toll road when there wasn't events going on.
Wow. Got to make that money somehow.
Right.
Yeah, I've watched way too much, an unhealthy amount of footage on YouTube of people driving the Nürburgring. So I'm acutely aware of what goes on there. I would love to go there someday. I'd love to ride passenger or maybe drive something. It would be so cool. And they have driving experiences there now, of course. You know, people are paying to stay there and drive different cars and check out the ring and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, people import their own vehicles. I see a lot from the USA or wherever to drive the ring, but also the Autobahn.
Yeah.
But I saw this video recently. A guy had like a late 70s Chevy El Camino drifting around the Nürburgring in the rain.
Wow.
like no reason he should be out there.
Death
but
wish.
That's pretty sick.
Yeah.
That's pretty sick.
Oh.
Yeah, what a legendary track. That's definitely a place that should be on most enthusiast bucket lists, I would think.
Man, I think maybe one day this podcast will get us there. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, I think we're already making at least $1 million an episode. So
yeah, it's true. Thanks, y'all. We appreciate it, by the way. The income is crazy.
It's wild. All right. June 18th, 1943, Tom Gale is born. Who's Tom Gale, you asked? This guy had a pretty legendary design career. He penned the Lamborghini Diablo, which was released in 1990, the Dodge Viper, which came out in 1992, and the Plymouth Prowler in conjunction with Chip Foose, which came out in 1997.
Damn. That's a lineup.
Not bad, right?
Also, this may be one of my favorite facts in a while. I did not know that the same person had a design hand in all those.
I mean, that's pretty significant.
Legendary vehicles in one way or another.
All of them, yeah, for sure. I mean, Chrysler owned Lamborghini at the time. So
Yeah.
you can see all these cars came out under the Lamborghini, or excuse me, the Chrysler flag. Mm-hmm. So I'm curious how you would rank these vehicles. I think I know what's going to come in number 3, but the first 2 could be.
I think it's
awesome.
as you read them.
Yeah.
As you read it, yeah. Diablo, Viper, Prowler.
I could see that.
Yeah.
It's kind of closer for me for the Viper and the Diablo, only because having a V10 American car like come out to compete with these European supercars at the time, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, very cool. Wow. Tom Gale, shout out.
Shout out. June 19th, 1947, the Tucker 48 made its public debut. Preston Tucker was a longtime designer that started his own company aiming to take the automotive world by storm with a radical new can't talk, Jordan.
It's okay. We don't need it.
Too much bubbly water.
It's just a podcast.
I'm going to stop reading everything. Have you heard of this car? Are you familiar with the Tucker 48?
I've heard of Tucker.
There was a famous movie from the 80s called Tucker, A Man in His Dream, which traced the origins of this vehicle, with Preston Tucker designing it and trying to get it into production. And ultimately what happened is he got slammed with a lawsuit from the SEC that claimed he was fraudulent because he was trying to sell like luggage and accessories and dealerships and all these things before the car ever came out to fund the production of the vehicle. So ultimately only 50 cars plus the one prototype ever left the Chicago factory before the lawsuit essentially took it all down. But he would later be found innocent of any charges.
Wow.
So it was a really revolutionary car, though. It had a air-cooled helicopter engine. It focused a lot on safety with safety glass, padded dash, seat belts, and it had this really cool third headlight.
I was just going to say, does it have 3 headlights here?
Yeah. And it would turn with the wheels.
Oh, that's cool. It's very, wow, that's the thing that like BMW started doing a couple years back.
They have that?
Yeah.
Oh, what?
Yeah, like the LED headlights follow where you're going, the laser headlights.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, the 3 headlight thing is interesting. It makes a lot of sense. I'm surprised that we don't see cars with more different headlight designs. I don't mean just shapes. I mean like number of them across the car or the placement or whatever else. I'm sure there's a lot of safety stuff there, but at the same time, like who's to say we couldn't have, 6 headlights in the front of a car? Why is why is the whole front of the car not one big headlight?
I just want a bunch of those flashlights that I get nonstop spam email for that I need to buy just on the front of my car.
The tactical mag lights?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's all you need.
Yeah.
Strap those to your car.
Yeah, beautiful car for sure.
Yeah, they're really expensive.
Big body, swoopy, white wall tires, 3 headlights, lots of chrome. Yeah, very cool looking.
Very cool. I'd watch the movie too if you get a chance. It's actually really good. Jeff Bridges plays Preston Tucker.
Oh, okay.
And it was directed by Francis Ford Coppola.
No, heard of him?
Nah. He owns a Tucker. That's why he made it.
Oh, there you go.
And his middle name is Ford because his dad worked at Ford.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, there's another bonus fact for you.
Yeah, I'm just pulling them out.
Wow, there we go. Ryan's on fire today.
All right. June 19th, 1966.
That's the one.
It took me a second to find my notes here. Okay. June 19th, 1966. Ford goes 1-2-3 at Le Mans, marking the first time that Ford or any American car company won the prestigious race. You've seen Ford versus Ferrari, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I liked it.
So this is what that movie is all about with the Ford GT40. And then you probably remember at the end of that race when they finally win, they stage all the cars together because they're so far ahead.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah. Well, if you haven't, it's like 5 years old. If you haven't seen it, like, get out of here. But they did that and it ruined Ken Miles' chance of doing the Triple Crown of endurance racing, which was Daytona, Sebring, and then the Le Mans, because the car that pulled in next to him had technically traveled farther because it started further back in the pack, even though they tied. So
some bullshit.
He ultimately said, "I'm disappointed, of course, but what are you going to do about it?"
The fact that that's what he had to say is...
I'm sure he had a few choice words
Yeah.
for Mr. Henry Ford II later on.
That's right. Trying to keep it semi-family friendly on here, you know?
Right.
Wow.
Okay.
June 20th.
June 20th. We got some interesting stories going on here. I feel like I'm talking a lot, just rambling through some things.
Love it. Keep
Yeah.
it up.
All
It's
right.
usually me dominating the airwaves here. I took the whole front half of the episode. Please, it's you now.
All right.
This is your moment.
Coming in hot. June 20th, 1942. Kind of in the middle of World War II. 3 Auschwitz prisoners from Poland and 1 from Ukraine steal uniforms, guns, and one of the guards' personal vehicles, a Steyr 220, to escape from the prison. Just drove right out the front gate. There's a movie about this called The Great Escape. It's certainly worth a watch. It's really an incredible feat what they did. They were all part of one of the units that had access to parts of the camp that other prisoners wouldn't, because like one was a mechanic.
Yep.
One was like a barber for some of the guards, and so like they were known around the camp a little bit, trusted, so to speak. And they decided, we're getting out of here. We're going to tell the world what's going on. Formulated this plan. The guy that was the mechanic went into the garage and just drove the car out of there because they just thought he was making sure that it ran, right?
Don't overthink it, you know?
Totally. So he goes to where they store the uniforms and the weapons. The other guys are getting dressed. They go to the gate. I think they don't open the gate when they drive up. And one of the escapees says in like broken German, like, what are you waiting for? Let me out of here.
Yeah.
And they just let him drive right out. And that was one of the first times that there was somebody who had escaped the camp to let the world know like what the hell was going on, like in these camps, like let people know what sort of tears were happening in Nazi Germany.
Wow.
Yeah. So steal a car if you got to get out of somewhere.
I guess so, yeah. You know, and the real trick is, if you don't know this, if you just put on a safety vest and have a clipboard in your hand, you can get in anywhere in the world. Similar vibe.
That does the
key.
trick.
It's the key. Anyone will listen to you. People will get out of your way. You can demand whatever you want.
So true.
Clipboard, safety vest, you're set.
I'm just going to wear a safety vest everywhere.
Yeah, totally. The grocery store, whatever.
Completely unrelated, but I went to a Rolling Stones concert when I was like 15, and I wanted to get down to the floor. I was with my cousin, and so we're trying to get down there, and this older gentleman is carrying like a bunch of beers, and he like walks down to the gate. It's at the football stadium, where the Seahawks play. Goes down to the field. They're checking tickets. He's like fumbling with his beers. Pulls out his ticket. They scan it or whatever, and he walks off. And then my cousin and I walk right behind him through the gate, and they're like, "Oh, where's your tickets?" I'm like, "That's my dad. He's got our tickets." And they just said, "Okay."
Nice.
And we just walked down there, and then we were front row to the Rolling Stones.
Hey, man.
So sometimes you just got to pull a little white lie to get what you want.
Or just, you got to look super
always
confident.
get what you want. Yeah, true.
Yeah, just charge right through. You know, have a shitty look on your face, and people won't get in your way half the time.
I'm pissed.
Yeah, exactly.
June 20th, 2023. Rivian announced it signed an agreement with Tesla to provide Rivian drivers access to Tesla's supercharger network across the US and Canada.
Thank God.
This is so significant in terms of developing the EV network.
Yeah.
I guess the big question is Tesla or Rivian for you?
Oh, Rivian, 100%.
Not a big question.
Yeah, not a big question, not a hard answer. Yeah, but I mean, this is, I don't, to me, this is the key to it all, right? The infrastructure side of it. And the more people can shake hands and get friendly and exchange money for the use of each other's technology, the better it is for the consumer, right?
Right. Well, it was kind of funny because this also signified Rivian's move to centralize their charging ports too.
Huh.
They weren't following the standards. They wanted to do their own thing like Tesla did. And then so they created an adapter and did all the work to kind of retrofit their vehicles so that it was just easier, which seems so obvious.
Yeah. And I think I remember reading about when this happened. Rivian sent, if you had bought a Rivian, they sent out an adapter like in the mail to you. And they're like, hey, you can use this at Tesla stuff now. Here's a freebie for you. I think it was free. But,
right.
Yeah.
I do hear all the time that Tesla customer service is so much worse than Rivian customer service, just in terms of like getting what you need out of your car.
Yeah.
Or like the service and all that kind of stuff.
It makes complete sense, right? You've got one that's cranking out a zillion cars, and
Right.
so they're like, why be more focused on customer service when we could just sell more cars? And Rivian's like, well, we actually have to keep our reputation together, and we're selling one car at a time here, as opposed to Tesla that's selling a gazillion cars at a time.
Right.
But to me, it's a long game thing, right? I would much rather be purchasing something, especially as expensive as a vehicle from Rivian, with good customer service and maybe slower or whatever, than I would buying some, Happy Meal vehicle coming across the line. They're printing a million of them a day, and then you can't get a hold of anybody who need help for something. But
True.
different strokes for different folks. RJ, who's the founder and CEO of Rivian, said at the time, "We're excited to work with Tesla and see collaborations like this help advance the world toward carbon neutrality. The adoption of the North American charging standard will enable our existing and future customers to leverage Tesla's expansive supercharger network while we continue to build out our Rivian Adventure network. We look forward to continuing to find new ways to accelerate EV adoption." And not only is this a big deal, as we were saying, but years ago, I used to work at Amazon as a producer of sorts. And at the time, Amazon had invested in Rivian because they wanted Rivian to build their all-electric delivery truck fleet.
Right.
So I actually got to go out to Normal, Illinois, the town of Normal, Illinois.
Is it normal?
It is very normal. But I got to go out to the Rivian factory there and actually got to meet RJ, interview him, and a man named Jeff Hamoud, who's the head of design or something along those lines now at Rivian, and see how they were made. Not only just the Rivian vehicles themselves, but the Amazon trucks as well. It's very cool to be in an automotive manufacturing facility, especially one at the beginning of its life.
Yeah, that's very cool.
It was really cool. Yeah, the content that the team and I made was awesome as well. It's a bunch of photo content, video content. Is really cool.
I've never been into an assembly line.
Yeah.
For any car company. And you can do the Ford plant tours and things like that. I've been to Detroit a bunch. I think I have to do that at some point.
Yeah, we should do a Detroit trip.
That'd be sick.
Just you and I, let's do it. That'd be awesome. One of the coolest things about this, actually, which I didn't realize, was car design, particularly exteriors, are still done with actual clay. They have full-sized vehicles that are literally being hand-carved by hand with knives from a huge chunk of clay.
See my clay cars up here?
Oh, look at that. Yeah,
I hand sculpted those.
Damn, look at that. Yeah, I love that.
Just so everybody's aware, I'm pointing out my 6th grade art project, which is a little hot rod pickup I carved out of clay.
Yeah, it's looking sick. It's not quite as refined as what I saw on the Rivian floor.
That's
but,
fair.
That was a really interesting thing for me, because even in this moment of the technology we have and CAD and all these things nowadays, it's still just made faster and easier sense to do it physically with a knife and a chunk of clay in person. It was really cool because you'd have all these people standing around, and they'd one person be cutting, the other person be smoothing, and the other person would step back. Oh no, let's add some back on there. It was a really unique, tangible thing to see.
Yeah, I mean, it gives you the actual sense. And it's cool too when they do one half of the clay block as one design and the other half slightly different or very different. And so they get to weigh their options.
Yeah. No, it was awesome.
That's rad. June 21st, 1983, Nissan unveils the 6th generation of the Nissan Cedric, which includes a sedan and a wagon. This car was meant to rival the Mercedes-Benz S-Class and the BMW 7 Series.
How'd that go?
Well, it had moquette cloth. I don't even know what that is. I need to do more research on these notes.
I've never even heard that word in my life.
Moquette. I'm going to name my kid Moquette.
Well, moquette is a type of woven pile fabric in which cut or uncut threads form a short, dense cut or loop pile. That doesn't help me at all, but I just thought I'd read that out. Yeah. It's some cheap Office Max carpet is what it is.
So it's got carpet seats. The car featured adjustable front seats, adjustable steering wheel, power steering, air conditioning, tinted windows, AM/FM stereo cassette, and a 3.0-liter V6. And Jordan just showed me a picture of the interior, and it's insane.
Yeah, the moquette looks like a shitty 1980s airport carpet, right? It's got all the weird, woven random designs and shapes with totally opposing colors. It's basically like that. At least that's what moquette is typically looking like.
I want that in my Cadillac Celestiq.
100%. They'll do it for you. Maybe.
Not a whole lot to say about this car.
No, it's about as like straightforward, boxy, station wagony, beige colored thing as you can imagine. The fact that this was going to compete with the S-Class and the 7 Series is pretty laughable.
Right.
Certainly doesn't have the looks. Let's put it that way.
No. I wonder how it compared price-wise.
I would hope not anywhere near what an S-Class or a 7 Series would be. Just in
I think
general.
Nissan really wanted to be something else at the time.
Yeah.
Like they were really gunning for top dollar.
Yeah.
But it just wasn't there yet.
Nissan is such a confusing brand.
Still.
Always has been to me.
The Altima.
They're just all over the place. Like every decade is so
Well, now it's the cheapest car on the market.
Yeah, for sure. Yep. June 22nd.
June 22nd, 2001. The original The Fast and the Furious movie debuts in theaters, launching the film empire.
Thank God. That's all we have to say. First one's the best. 2001.
That's all you got to do.
Yeah, saw it in theaters. It was incredible.
Same. June 22nd, 2019, the 2020 Mini John Cooper Works GP edition debuts publicly. They only built 3,000 of these. And it features light alloy wheels, open air intakes, unique front and rear aprons, a roof spoiler, and a 300 horsepower 4-cylinder with mini twin power turbo technology.
I love this thing, and this is the big boy John Cooper Works.
Yeah.
This is like this is the top. This is the top of the top trim.
Well, this is what we're talking about. When you build an actual trim level and they limit the production, then it's worth something.
Yeah.
You can't just slap some stickers on it and call it something.
Also, I love that this thing came stock with open air intakes because they're like, I know you want to hear the sounds. Yeah.
But the twin power name is borrowed from BMW. BMW, of course, owns Mini. But what does twin power refer to? Do you know?
Well, I think this is related, but this is something that's been confusing to me, and I'm sure probably plenty of people. BMW and other brands often have a designation for turbos called a twin scroll turbo. And then there are other cars that have twin turbos. These are not the same thing. I think there are some people that think they're the same. They're not. Twin scroll turbos are a type of single turbocharger that can provide a similar power to a twin turbo setup, but with fewer parts and less weight. Twin scroll turbos can also be more efficient and have better low RPM performance than single scroll turbos. However, they can be less efficient at high RPMs and are more expensive and complicated to make. So you'll often see a twin scroll turbo, which is, again, one turbo, in vehicles where you get that low-end torque right off the line, spools up quick, lots of butt dyno torque going on. And then a twin turbo setup literally uses two separate turbos.
Right.
To either work in tandem or sequentially to maximize power and efficiency across a broad range of engine speeds.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, so both can spool up at the same amount at the same time, or you can have one spool up, and once it gets to a certain RPM, it actually switches over to the other turbo and keeps the power going in a different way. So there's a lot of shit going on there, but a twin scroll turbo is not the same thing as twin turbos.
Now you know.
And now I imagine that a twin power is probably exactly that, because no Mini had twin turbos.
No.
Only had one turbo. So it'd be a twin scroll single turbo is what the Minis had.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, because that's like that twin power thing is BMW's trademark, right?
Yep.
Interesting. Thanks for the engineering lesson.
Got you.
June 23rd, 1902. Daimler registers Mercedes as a trademark. So the original Mercedes, I think, came out in 1903, the following year. Actually, there was cars called the Mercedes, but then they merged with Daimler, and it's a whole thing. But this was the official introduction of the Mercedes vehicle.
Sick. You know, Mercedes is it's a rich name. Like, it sounds like a rich name. Although Daimler sounds possibly richer to me.
I mean, they used that name for a long time on some things. I can't remember if it's still around.
I think in like formal contexts, you'll see it in press releases and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, you don't hear people throwing Daimler around very often anymore.
That and Maybach.
Yeah.
That was the same era. There's all those guys just hanging out.
Still around, man.
Yeah.
Maybach it's around.
Right. It's relatively recent that it's like back in action, because I feel like there was like a 40-year gap from one Maybach to another.
Yeah, I'm not sure of the history of it, but I remember when Maybachs were this big thing in late 90s, early 2000s rap. Because it was always people talking about how they had a Maybach instead of anything else. And at the time, I didn't quite understand, and so I started Googling stuff and looking it up. And what's funny is, yes, they look different than their Mercedes counterparts, because they're really just based off of an existing Mercedes model. It's essentially, I might get flamed for this, but it's almost like a trim. It's a brand, but it's a trim, right? It's like the highest trim of the highest.
Well, it's like calling the Grand Wagoneer not a Jeep.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And so they're around, but they're incredible. I mean, they're basically like the again, flamed poor man's Rolls Royce. Like, they're super expensive, but it's kind of like they're trying to compete in the same space. And I'm sure they do, but I don't know. For my money, I think I'd get something called a Phantom or a Spectre if I had that kind of money. But
there you go.
Yeah.
I got my own Phantoms, but my therapist can't help me with that.
Those are expensive too.
Yeah, about the same price. Yeah. June 23rd, 2007, Ferrari World Tour comes to an end. So to celebrate its 60th anniversary, Ferrari conducted a global relay that lasted nearly 5 months and passed through more than 50 countries before coming to an end on June 23rd, 2007 at Ferrari headquarters in Italy. Not a bad way to celebrate your 60th birthday.
That sounds insane. I've never heard of this. That sounds incredible. Also, I want to do this for a living. I want to be involved in the planning of the Ferrari World Tour.
It's not a bad move.
Yeah.
Somebody's got to plan it.
Actually, it's probably a pain in the ass to plan, but at the same time, what a crazy cool thing to have organized.
Right? Yeah, so it began in January of 2007 in Abu Dhabi, traveled through Saudi Arabia, China, Australia, Mexico, the US, Canada, Russia, and a whole bunch of other places. Thousands of Ferrari owners and their cars took part in it, and each one, well, not every single one that participated carried the baton, but some selected drivers carried a baton, so to speak, that featured the 60 badges that represented important milestones in Ferrari's history.
It's cool.
And it made it all the way back to Maranello, Italy.
Yeah, wow. What a Ferrari thing to do as well.
Yeah.
Very exotic car thing to do.
I wonder what the highest mileage Ferrari is.
Yeah. I don't know. Like without like any sort of rebuild, just straight off. I don't know. It's a good question. I bet somebody's got like a 300,000 out there.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like a 308 GTS.
Yeah, something like that. June 24th.
June 24th, 1910, Alfa Romeo is founded, originally known just as Alfa, A-L-F-A, the Anonima Lombarda Fabbrica Automobili. I really need to work on that.
That was good.
Italian.
That was good, I think.
It was formed by Giuseppe Marosi, who had been hired by a French car company to design cars for the Italian market. But after he realized that he was actually really good at his job, he just started his own car company. So when Niccolo Romeo took over as director in 1920, he slapped his own name on it, officially making it Alfa Romeo.
Damn.
5 years later, they won the inaugural World Championship for Grand Prix cars, which is basically the precursor for F1, and ever since, Alfa Romeo has been really involved in racing.
I want to just swoop in on somebody else's hard work and just slap my name on it.
Right?
Yeah. That sounds awesome.
I'm sure there's a story there. I don't know what it is.
There's something we could do. There's got to be something around here I can do that on.
Just go up to people's like mailboxes and put your name on it.
Yeah.
It's my mail now.
2015, June 24th.
Oh my gosh. Toyota unveils design plans for its new North American headquarters in Plano, Texas, under the One Toyota plan. So it included 7 buildings to support engineers, designers, admin, and other operations, as well as dining, fitness, and conference facilities. And it officially opened in July of 2018 and was home to still is home to some 3,000 employees.
Sounds like a hotel.
I'm sure it is. I'm sure like a lot of people who work there never leave.
Probably.
Well, I mean, one of the reasons that they chose Plano, Texas, which seems like such a weird place, is that there was just an abundance of homes for sale. And when you're moving 3,000 people somewhere, you need a lot of houses.
And, I'm sure it had nothing to do with the tax situation.
Zero.
There's no way. Nobody thought of that. No.
Texas doesn't have cheap land or cheap taxes or any of that.
No rules, all the good things. Anyway, if you're wondering what the One Toyota plan is, it was a strategic effort by Toyota to enhance its competitiveness and operational efficiency in North America. By consolidating its headquarters and creating a more integrated and collaborative environment, Toyota claims to better leverage its resources, foster innovation, and maintain its position as a leading automaker.
Sounds like a terrible back-to-work plan.
Yeah, totally.
Back to
office. Yeah, yuck. You want to go back to office? Plano, Texas. Jesus. Shout out to our Texas listeners, though.
Yeah. Austin's cool.
Yes, cool. Well, that's the history.
Wham bam, we cruised through that pretty good.
We really did. Those are some fun facts, though.
It is a good
There
one.
wasn't a single 1800s fact in there, my brother.
I know. I wasn't going to say anything. You brought it up.
He's changing.
Uh-oh. We got back to 1903.
That's true. Close. Skirted that.
Yeah.
Damn.
We're getting there.
Here we got some reader mail, some listener mail. Chris P. is checking in on a few topics from the last couple episodes, which we appreciate. Here's what he has to say. Hey guys, on autonomous cars, you are forgetting the profound effect this will have on our ever-aging population and the freedom this could provide our handicapped population. With extreme commutes, such as 75 miles or more going up, I would love to not have to drive in 30 to 45 mile an hour commutes.
This is a great point. So
Yes.
actually, my mom brought this up to me. She listened to the episode.
Yep.
She was like, I wouldn't mind as I get older. Like, I don't want to lose my ability to drive. And it's like, well, if you do, you have a way to get around. And,
Right.
and I think the argument, as opposed to calling a taxi or an Uber or whatever, is that you still have that sense of mobility.
Sure.
And you still have ownership over your, the places you're going and when and where. And, you don't have to spend $20 on a ride or this, that, and the other thing.
Right.
So, solid argument.
Totally. And it's funny that you mentioned that, Chris. I was actually thinking that as we were talking about that in the last episode, and I thought to myself, yes, very, very valuable. I probably should have mentioned it because it is like, it's a need, right? Rather than a want.
True.
For that group of folks and for all of us because we're all getting older. But yeah, it's definitely an applicable thing. Good call. Also, used Cayennes are quote-unquote cheap, and the V6 versions of those are very robust. Chris claims to have a customer that has 135,000 miles on his 2012 and has had very few issues. And this is very interesting timing, my friend, because Brian's been trying to get me to buy a Panamera of the same era with the same V6 in it. And it's looking good, and the mileage is looking good. And
It's got 85,000 miles on it.
yeah, it's pretty good for a 2012.
It's the 4.
Like
It's the base model.
Yeah.
But that's all right. It looks sweet.
Yeah, I wish I had the V8, but what you're saying about the V6 is compelling. And there is another car book recommendation here. Lexus, The Relentless Pursuit by Chester Dawson. Appreciate the recommendation. We will check that out.
Yeah. I think we were talking about the founder of Lexus last episode
Right.
or the episode before. So I think that's where that comes into play.
Yeah.
Awesome. Chris, thanks for reaching out.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
Great points. If you have any questions, thoughts, concerns, please hit us up at contact@carsandcopymedia.com or on any of our social media channels under This Day in Automotive History or the Drive History Pod on Instagram. You can find Jordan at Jordan B. Stead on most platforms, and I'm Spare Change Multimedia on Instagram.
And, while we're at it, while we're talking about all this interweb stuff, it seems like we're in a black hole of internet times these days. We're putting out content all the time. I'm seeing other people put out content all the time. And it seems like the engagement on things is just so ungodly low. I'm seeing posts that maybe a couple years ago would have had hundreds of likes and shares on them have literally 1 like and 0 shares. And we're seeing that here and there on our content. So we would love for anyone who's listening to this, please give us a share, text this to your friends, text it to your family, email it to your English professor, whatever you're going to do. Spread the word. This is the only way we can grow. And it's hard out there. It's weird out there these days. So hook us up. We'd appreciate it. If you love us, we love you. Please share, and we'd really, really appreciate it.
Truth. Till then, drive history every day.
Yes, sir. Bye.